Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the next webinar in the Value Notes webinar series. Our topic today is Best Practices for Successful Competitive Intelligence Partnerships. My name is Nidhi, and I work with Research Support Services at Value Notes. Just a minute, we're fixing some technical glitches. Just to give you a brief idea of what we'll be covering today, let's look at today's agenda. I'll begin by giving a brief idea about Value Notes and then go straight to today's topic, which is best practices for successful CI partnerships. We will first take a look at various models companies adopt for CI, and we'll focus on partnership model and its benefits. Following this, we will understand which activities can successfully be outsourced and the ones which cannot be outsourced. We will then present a few case studies from our experience in the industry. We will highlight some factors that were very important for successes and the ones that pose the greatest hurdles. Based on these insights, we will identify the best practices for partnerships. We will also discuss various points an organization should keep in mind while selecting a partner. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to post them in the chat window and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. As many of you are aware, Value Notes is amongst India's top ranking research and consulting companies. Over the past decade and more, we've served hundreds of organizations across diverse industries, markets, and geographies. We understand their unique business situations and work with them to design optimal research solutions for actionable intelligence. Through our CI consulting practice, we assist companies to identify their CI needs and align their CI function to accelerate business outcomes. Value Notes also offers a series of highly effective corporate education programs for teams and individuals at all levels, from research analysts to top management and strategists. We develop research and information products covering various industries and are one of the largest information providers on outsourcing industry. We provide a wide range of bespoke services about specific markets, industries, companies, and competitive environments. Some of our clients also engage us to manage their research back office. One of the key reasons why our clients trust us as a partner and custodian of their business information is our strong ethical framework based on the SKIP code. Our CEO, Arun Jethmalani, is the founder and current chairman of SKIP India chapter. Our clients include not only Fortune 500 firms, but also several fast-growing enterprises from all over the world. While we are a global research company, Value Notes is also India market specialist. Owing to our flagship product in the Indian financial markets and deep understanding of the local business environment, we can offer unmatched insight into India and the emerging markets economic model. We are noted by our clients for the value we bring them by the way of actionable intelligence. So let's move on to our main topic now. We start with the benefits of CI partnerships. So as you all are aware, all businesses carry out intelligence efforts. The main intention is, of course, to gain a competitive edge over its competitors. Companies usually undertake activities such as monitoring of news, macroeconomic trends, economic regulations, price tracking on one hand, and product intelligence, counterfeit studies, market intelligence, competitor intelligence, and supply chain intelligence on the other hand. These efforts are structured differently across organizations. Some companies with a global footprint have a central CI team which collects information from respective regions and then assists the management with actionable intelligence. The regions in turn have smaller teams collecting local information and assisting the central CI team. For example, a company is headquartered in the UK and has operations in North America, Asia Pacific, and Europe. It will have a central CI team in UK assisted by regional teams in Asia Pacific, Europe and North America. In another scenario, we have organizations which have a captive CI team which is situated at a low-cost location. This team helps in collecting information and assists the central and regional CI teams. To give an example, Eaton has a manufacturing setup in India. It has a small intelligence team based out of India and helps with the CI need of the entire organization. Captives are typically located in emerging markets like India, Philippines, Indonesia, and China. In the third scenario, we also observe that there are organizations which partner with third-party consultants or service providers to assist with their CI needs of the central or regional business units. There are several service providers, including Value Notes, who offer CI support. Increasing number of organizations are now locating their CI teams in emerging markets. In this webinar, we are focusing on the partnership model. So what are the benefits of such partnerships? Firstly, research partners have a lot to offer to organizations. As they work with multiple companies and domains, they have access to sophisticated research techniques. They also have processes and tools in place for undertaking CI projects. The quality and value in these projects is superior to what the organization can do in the same time. For example, something like predictive analysis. It may be needed only occasionally, but requires very specialized skill sets. This is something that can be outsourced instead of developing an in-house capability. It will prove to be more cost efficient for the company. Secondly, there are regulatory restrictions in many countries which do not allow companies to talk to, say, their competitors or customers directly. But third-party service providers or partners can talk to them and pass on the intelligence to the company. Also, there is a cost advantage in working with partners, particularly in emerging markets. In the current economic scenario, it is an important consideration. Firstly, emerging locations have low cost structure, and secondly, because partners work with multiple customers, they typically have access to many more databases and subscriptions. For example, it may be easier to carry out survey through partners if they already have empaneled respondents and processes set in place to collect data. This makes the whole activity more efficient. One very obvious advantage that exists when working across time zones is that work does not stop. If managed well, this can bring a lot of efficiencies. Emerging economies are key markets for any organization. They need to understand these markets. If they have CI teams located there, they're able to get much better local information. This is critical for the success of their plans. For example, a company coming into India has a tough time understanding the market. This is because there are 28 states in India and every state has its own particular culture, language, regulations, legislation, taxes, policies, and so on. Now suppose you are trying to evaluate the demand in cold chain logistics in India. The demand is dependent on the consumption of meat, fish, and dairy products. And this varies across the states based on their cultures and preferences. To understand these, you need deep local knowledge. The other issue in emerging markets in general is the lack of documentation and secondary data. It is impossible to get data on many sectors through secondary research alone. A case in point is, say, the car battery market. While it is trivial to study the size of the battery market in developed nations, it is difficult to do so in India. This is because 90% of it is unorganized. Finally, partnerships allow the organizations an opportunity to get unbiased inputs. Although there are many benefits to partnerships, not all activities can be outsourced. Looking at the research value chain, regional teams can be involved from defining the objective to some level of regional decision making. Captive teams can be fairly effective in supporting the regional and central CI team, mainly by the virtue of being a part of the organization. A high level of information sharing exists between a captive team and the regional teams. In case of partners, information gathering, organizing and processing activities, and some parts of analysis can be outsourced. However, companies are not always able to realize all the benefits. It should be remembered that not everything can or should be outsourced. Not everyone is capable of outsourcing. Outsourcing of an activity depends on 4 parameters: knowledge, tasks, source and application of information, and most importantly, people. Knowledge-dependent factors relate to the level of domain expertise required for performing the particular CI activity. As you can see, domain expertise may not always be readily available in partner teams, but often it can be built. For example, suppose you are an American company and doing competitor analysis for restaurant industry with a focus on breakfast items. Since the partner team in, say, India may not be familiar with American food items, they may have difficulty in classifying them whether they are breakfast, lunch, or dinner items. Some amount of reading and training will help them overcome this. For country knowledge, if activity requires knowledge of a foreign language like Asian languages, then the partner will be able to provide support only if he has local presence or network in the geographical location. In cases where proprietary knowledge of the organization needs to be shared with the partner, there could be some hesitation. Some organizations will choose not to outsource such tasks at all. Others may choose to do so only after they develop enough trust in the partner. As I mentioned earlier, knowledge can be built in a team. The next parameter to be considered is frequency and size of tasks. Task-dependent factors relate to the nature of the specific task being outsourced. For one-time projects, the size of the project determines if it is suitable for outsourcing or not. To successfully outsource any project, you will need to spend time to create detailed documentation and communicate with the remote team. In general, large projects can be outsourced. If the project is large, it is worthwhile to invest time to set it up with the partner. If the project is small and is repetitive, then it is still worthwhile to spend time to set it up. For small one-time projects, the amount of time spent does not make it worthwhile to outsource the project. Repetitive tasks are easily outsourceable, irrespective of their size, and even if you need to spend time on training. For example, for doing a monthly competitor analysis for a company, in the first month, a partner team spent 52 hours understanding and executing the project. Over a period of time, the time taken to execute the project was reduced by over 50% to only 25 hours per month. Essentially, ongoing and large projects are ideal for outsourcing. The next parameter determining whether the activity is suitable for outsourcing is source and application of information. Secondary research and primary research can easily be outsourced if the partner has the knowledge or skill resources. Some activities, for example, face-to-face consumer surveys, if they need to be done, then the partner will not be able to conduct it if he does not have geographical presence or network in the location. Yes, but the analysis of data can surely be outsourced. You may be able to outsource CI that leverages existing relationships of the organization. For example, getting inputs from channel partners is best done by those regularly interacting with them. As mentioned earlier, analysis of data can be outsourced. The application of information also has a great bearing on whether the activity should be outsourced. The application of CI required for regular reporting like competitor tracking, M&A intelligence, customer intelligence, monitoring trends is generally outsourced. So complex analysis for strategy inputs may not be possible to do for a partner. Strategy formulation requires analysts to have deep and intimate understanding of organization. Partner teams will typically not have this. People can make or break a partnership. If you are looking at a partnership, first and foremost, your management as well as the line managers need to be committed to the relationship. With commitment, they are willing to invest time. They will go the extra mile to solve small issues and problems which are bound to come up in the initial engagement period. Also, for outsourcing to a partner, the managers need to be able to translate the project into smaller tasks and activities. It will then be easy to identify which tasks can be sent to the partner and the parts that need to be handled by the in-house team. Managers will get greater help and a more complete output if they communicate the overall purpose or rationale for the activity to the partner. Creating detailed documentation which includes items like scope of the project, sources of information, formats or templates of reports helps immensely towards aligning expectations on both ends. Managers will also find it easy and get a better output if they understand the mindset and the culture of the partner in order to build a rapport and with the partner's team. So people aspect is a very important one. Now we'll be looking at some examples of partnerships from our experience. This is an example of how a global wealth management company effectively built a partnership. Falling returns in developed markets were forcing the organization to look at investigating less regulated and less researched emerging markets in search of higher returns. For this, they needed highly qualified financial analysts to collect and process information required to make the investment decisions. High attrition and rising salary costs were hindering their efforts. Their in-house team lacked the time and resource to focus on these long-term goals. They were swamped with more short-term requests. As a result, the long-term goals, which were important, though not urgent, were not getting adequate attention. So the strategy head realized that a research support partner would help them solve their problem. A large chunk of financial data collection and processing could easily be outsourced. It would then allow their in-house resources to focus on both short-term and long-term goals with ease. The engagement started at a slow pace. Asset managers tested the partner teams with small and non-core projects. Over the first year, all-round confidence increased as fund managers were satisfied with the initial progress. They started sending more complex and crucial work to the partner, like financial models. The partner slowly became an extension of the in-house research desk of the organization. Over time, even the non-participating managers lined up projects and began to demand exclusive team space. The relationship moved up the value chain over a period of time. So what are the key things that made this partnership a success? Firstly, phased expansion of the partnership was very important. It allowed time for the partnership to establish its credibility. Smaller projects help to train and align expectations on both ends. Gatekeepers at the organization and partners' end help to streamline the flow of work and any issues that arose. Managers and gatekeepers teleconference every month. Regular communication, feedback or reviews between both the teams help to improve communication and confidence. They also help to create and streamline process for deliverables and most importantly create a good communication between the partner and the organization. Training for analysts in partner teams for specialized databases and tools were also done. Other important factors were, of course, clear and transparent documentation which cleared any ambiguity. Another factor that was of great help was that of the contractual agreement created redundancies in the team. This was to ensure that attrition would not impact the workflow. Also, the team would help to absorb some extra work requests over and above what was contracted. This model was able to effectively handle the workflow spikes. It could service long-term as well as short turnaround time requests. Finally, in view of the long-term perspective, the organization invested time in the relationship and reaped good rewards. Let's have a look at another partnership. The organization here was then a medium-sized global market intelligence and consulting service provider based in Europe. It provided market intelligence on a regular as well as ad hoc basis to global corporations in a variety of industries. Their news monitoring service constituted a large chunk of their work. It needed a lot of manual inputs on a daily basis. It was also a very time-dependent activity as their clients needed daily updates in the early part of each day. The organization was also losing projects to key competitor because the competitor had delivery capability from a low-cost destination and hence could offer lower pricing. So the organization was on a lookout for a research partner who would provide continuous research support at competitive rates. Their bespoke assignments required concentrated analyst time in spikes, which their in-house team could not handle. Further, they were establishing a global footprint, so they needed local knowledge in different markets. They chose to partner with a research company in India to address these challenges. The time zone difference helped deliver news early in the day. The partner was able to absorb the spikes in work and could also provide specialized skill set as well as local knowledge support in India. The relationship began with outsourcing of simple abstraction of news articles for 2 verticals. And within a year, this grew to 14 verticals. It progressed to cover end-to-end servicing for news monitoring offering. With time, other complex requests such as research support in business area reviews, newsletters, and presentations were also outsourced. Next, bespoke research like end-to-end projects in verticals like lightning, BFSI, chemicals were outsourced. An FTE model was not suitable engagement for this. The news monitoring service was concentrated in only a part of the day. The bespoke research assignments needed analysts only some days every month. An innovative billing model was worked out. Some of the activities were billed on per task basis, some had an hourly billing, and some were fixed cost projects. This helped the organization gain efficiencies and proved to be a win-win for both the organization as well as the partner. The organization, as a result, was further able to grow its portfolio of services based on the local expertise that the partner could provide them. Essentially, the relationship with the partner grew along with the organization. So here is what helped make this partnership a success. Firstly, the management commitment. While senior management was committed to the relationship, a few managers were not comfortable with the partnership and were not very helpful initially. They did not lend adequate cooperation. For example, they did not give clear and regular feedback. When the senior management was apprised of the problem, they helped develop a consensus among their managers. They forcefully communicated the benefits of this relationship to the organization and to the managers. And this helped to improve the level of cooperation. Over time, detailed process documentation was created for all activities. Clearly defined SLAs help define the organization's expectations from the partnership. Schedules for reviews and feedbacks were set up, which enabled timely escalations in issues and problems. To further improve communication with the partner teams and to impart training, managers from organization visited the partner location for some period of time. This also helped to build personal rapport with the analysts and bridge cultural differences. Developing an appropriate engagement model kept both the parties motivated to improve the engagement. Finally, No matter how watertight you make a contract, engagements really work on trust, and this key ingredient helped iron out any differences that arose. So investment in this relationship was a strong positive driver. Based on these case studies and other similar engagements, here is the summary of best practices for successful CI partnerships. First, the managers need to be committed to the relationship. Clear contracts and SLAs should be laid out to set the expectations. These can be developed collaboratively with the partner. Strong communication and single point of contact at both organizations ensures that there are no misunderstandings and nothing falls through the cracks. Efficient workflow needs to be developed and documented. The documentation should regularly be reviewed and updated so there is a continuous improvement. Selection of the right partner is critical. We will discuss this criteria for selection in the next slide. Finally, an appropriate engagement model ensures commercial attractiveness for both parties. Here are some points to keep in mind while selecting a partner. Firstly, it is important to choose an appropriately sized partner. The size of the engagement should not be an insignificant portion of the partner's turnover. This way, the partner will give the required attention to the relationship. Secondly, the partner should have the required skill set and knowledge for the CI activity and the ability to take up even higher level of work. That way, the relationship has a scope to grow and move over time. The partner should have adequate security measures, including physical, electronic, and contractual measures to protect the information. Finally, remember that trust and rapport are key things that make or break the relationship. Partnerships are not only between organizations, but more importantly, between people. This brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have found the session useful. Some of you have sent us questions. I have my colleague Varsha Chitle with me. She heads a CI consulting practice at ValueNotes. Together we will try and answer all your questions. I'll be happy to take questions right now. I see we seem to have a question from Sagar. Sorry, Ashwin. What are the key areas required in a contract? First thing, the contract should cover, first and foremost, the period of agreement and the scope of engagement. Other things that the contract can cover are fees and the terms of payment, security measures for information, infrastructural factors if they're relevant, skill set of resources, availability of skill sets, working location, holiday schedules, communication of risk-related factors, especially with the service delivery, reporting of MISs, processes outlining the process for expansion of scope if there is an option, communication pathway for or the chain of communication for the service, processes to deal with minor changes as and when they arise. These are some of the key factors that can be covered under a contract.
Here is another question we have. It is from Meenakshi. Meenakshi asks, what is the level of cost saving that can be achieved? Meenakshi, that really depends on several things. I know that depends is a very useless answer, but I'll tell you it depends on things such as the size of the engagement, type of work, what vertical you're working on, in how specialized is the knowledge that the analysts need to have, and so on. But just to give you a ballpark, on average you can expect to have a cost saving of between 20 to 40%. I hope that helps. We have a question here from Kapil, actually two questions from Kapil. He says, can I get a copy of this deck? Yes, Kapil, we'll have the deck as well as the webinar video file available on our website, and we'll send all the attendees the links to both at the end of the webinar, so you can get it. Secondly, there is a question again from Kapil. Can you please elaborate on different types of engagement models? Yes, sure. Engagement models really depend on the type of work that you're outsourcing. There are two, three, four typical engagement models that are used. One is, of course, the FTE model, which is generally used by organizations which are really augmenting manpower. They need full-time resources and they don't have enough resources, and they want to be able to use the resources on various different things which are not really set in advance, or the processes or the tasks as such are not repetitive, not regular, but they'd like to have extra analysts working with them. So FTE works best for them. The other are when you have repetitive activities, you can work on a per piece or per task or per activity level. For instance, if you have repetitive reports, you can engage on a per report basis. If you have, for instance, if you're doing something like news monitoring, you can work on a per abstract, per news piece, or per day basis. There is also hourly billing done, hourly billing is common in all kinds of outsourcing and offshoring activities. Further, you can work on a project basis. So in competitive intelligence, often there is a particular question to be answered for the corporation or for the client. So the corporation or the client can ask for assistance on answering a specific question, which becomes like a project. So you can then have project-based costing. I hope that answers your question. We have another question from Ramesh. And he says, do you provide dedicated resources for our company's CI activities? Yes, certainly. We will be able to provide dedicated resources for your company's CI activities. ValueNodes does provide this service. We typically decide on the number of dedicated resources you need, and we build in some redundancies there. So for instance, if you need 5 resources, we'll keep 6 to 7 trained resources available for you, so that, in case somebody is sick, you have you have someone else who can take their place, or if you have an overrun in the work that you need, in 1 or 2 weeks, or in certain parts of the year or certain parts of the month, you have some redundancy there that can take care of your needs. I have another question here, which relates to, it's from Stephen, and he asks, is there a minimum size for the partnership, and can you, for instance, have just one FTE arrangement? Stephen, I don't think there is a minimum size per se, but what does differ is the amount of cost saving you can have with a very small size, with a very small engagement. For instance, with just one FTE, the cost savings that you'll make by giving the work to the partner may not be that high. Because there's a certain amount of non-variable overhead that needs to be put in from both sides, from your organization as well as from your partner. And typically, if you have a large engagement, these overheads are spread over many FTEs or over the entire work. So sure, there is no minimum size, but like I said, the benefits to your organization may not be that high. About maximum size, there's no really maximum size. There are no thumb rules that I'm aware of Again, what you need to be aware of is, can the partner handle the size you want? So really, the size issue is related to who you choose as your partner. So I hope that answers your question. There is a question from Rob, and he asks, which industries do you specialize in, and do you have any domain-specific teams? Thanks, Rob, for your question. And we actually work across a very large number of industries. However, we have done more work in certain industries than in others. So, for instance, we've done a lot of work in the engineering sector, IT, BFSI, ITES, and so on. To get details on this, feel free to visit our website, which is www.valuenotes.co.in. I'm coming on to our final question, which is related to best practices for ensuring. So I have a question from Deepa, and she asks, are there any best practices for ensuring quality? I'm going to let Nidhi answer this question.
Hello. Yeah, Deepa, there are some clear factors which ensure quality. One is clear specification for what is required. Clear definitions on quality, for example, related to formatting, spelling, factual data, timeliness. These kind of factors will help improve the quality and make sure that it doesn't suffer. Quantification helps. Not more than, let's say, some examples like not more than 10-minute delay is acceptable, or zero tolerance for spelling and factual errors, etc. Another factor to keep in mind is also processes for ensuring quality. So a maker and a checker process will help. Wherever standardization is possible, it should be done. This can be like in templates for data collection, analysis, reports. This again helps to ensure that the quality is maintained. Training, continuous or one time, also helps. Regular feedback is a very important part of ensuring quality. You can also go a step ahead and include quality parameters in the service level agreements. You can have penalties for not meeting quality requirements. So factors like this will help to ensure the quality is maintained.
I don't think we have any more questions.
We will post. If you have any more questions, you can send them to me on my email, nidhi@valuenotes.co.in. We will post the recording of today's webinar on our website and send you a link to it in case you want to download it. You can also share it with others who may be interested but have missed today's presentation. We'll mail you a short feedback form on how you found our presentation. We would appreciate it if you could fill it in. This will help us understand how useful you found our presentation. Thank you again for attending today's webinar.